justice for all. The prayer today. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
And thank you for giving us the grace. We were a little bit late, so it doesn't happen often. We've been doing great on time. But sometimes we need to be a little flexible, so I appreciate you. Today's prayer is going to be actually offered by the wonderful delegate from Anne Arundel County.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you for the grace this morning. Body, from last week's Legislative Prayer Caucus breakfast, Reverend Dr. Margaret Gruen Kibben, the 62nd chaplain of the U.S. House of Representatives, spoke about prayer. Prayer is a privilege. Prayer is a priority. Prayer has a price, and prayer is a promise. Amen.
Quorum call.
Madam Speaker.
Give people a minute to reach their seats. If you can take your seat, please, and push your buttons. We're going to get started in 2 seconds. Okay? Has everyone recorded their presence? If so, the clerk will take the call. There being 133 members present, the House is now in session. The clerk will read the journal from the previous day.
Annapolis, Maryland, March the 3rd, 2026.
Recognizing the Deputy Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So much be considered the reading of the journal.
So order, petitions, memorials, and other papers. So, colleagues, we have one resolution today, and the resolution is going to be introduced by the wonderful gentleman from Baltimore County.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. We are very proud today to be honoring Deborah Tuminello Feely from the Department of Legislative Services. Debbie will be retiring in June after 24 years of dedicated service as the facilities manager for DOS. She has consistently ensured that our facilities remain operational and well-maintained throughout the years, and she has regularly assisted with event setups and has been the go-to person for everyone in the DOS complex. Additionally, Debbie contributed her valuable expertise as a member of the project team for the Department of Legislative Services rebuild and was an integral part of that success. Please join me in honoring Debbie today. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Very deserving. Very deserving. And if I may say, I met Debbie when I first started 20 years ago almost, and she was in charge of the phones. And I called her April for the longest, because there was an April there before her. And she never corrected me. Never corrected me. So Debbie, 20-something years is a lot to give to an organization. It's a lot to deal with 141 of us, and you have always done it with such grace and patience. And it's been an honor to know you, and I pray to God that you enjoy your retirement because you deserve it. Thank you. Will you come up, please, and have a picture with Debbie? Come on. Would the clerk please read the resolution?
Be it hereby known to all that the Maryland General Assembly offers its sincerest congratulations to Deborah Tuminello Feely in recognition of your retirement after 22 years of dedicated and exemplary service as the facilities manager for the Maryland General Assembly. The entire membership extends best wishes on this memorable occasion and directs this resolution to be presented on this first day of June 2026.
Thank you. Okay. All right.
So number one.
Thank you. Okay. So colleagues, for those of you that will look it up on the computer, we're going to start with the report of the Committee on Appropriations. Report number 12. The clerk will read the bill.
House Bill 660, Public Library, State Library Resource Center, funding favorable.
The question before the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill as to its title? Hearing none, the bill is order printed for third reading. The next report is a report of the Committee on Judiciary. Report number 18. The clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 282, Adult Protective Services Modifications, favorable.
The question before the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill as to its title? Hearing none, the bill is order printed for third reading. The clerk will read the next bill, please.
House Bill 1054, Criminal Law, Ethics, Violations, Malfeasance, Misfeasance, and Nonfeasance, Statute of Limitations, favorable.
The question before the House is the adoption of the favorable report. Let's listen, please. Thank you. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill as to its title? Hearing none, the bill is order printed for third reading. The clerk will read the next bill, please.
House Bill 1222, Prince George's County State's Attorney Salary Alteration, favorable.
The question before the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill as to its title? Hearing none, the bill is order printed for third reading. The clerk will read the next bill, please.
House Bill 1345, Maryland Trust Act in Terrarum Clause, void, favorable.
The question before the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill as to its title? Hearing none, the bill is order printed for third reading. The clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 1389, Public Health, Female Genital Mutilation, favorable.
The question before the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill as to its title? Hearing none, the bill is order printed for third reading. The clerk will read the next bill, please.
House Bill 1441, Criminal Law, Public Consumption and Open Container, Prepayment of Citation, favorable.
The question before the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill as to its title? Hearing none, the bill is order printed for third reading. The clerk will read the next bill, please.
House Bill 1467, Criminal Law, Fourth Degree Sexual Offense, Out-of-State Convictions, favorable.
The question before the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill as to its title? Hearing none, the bill is order printed for third reading. The next report is a report of the Committee on Ways and Means. This is report number 12. The clerk will read the first bill, please.
House Bill 742, Growing Family Child Care Opportunities Program, funding, favorable.
The question before the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill as to its title? Hearing none, the bill is order printed for third reading. The clerk will read the next bill, please.
House Bill 1052, Maryland School for the Deaf, Membership of Board of Trustees, alterations, favorable.
The question before the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill as to its title? Hearing none, the bill is order printed for third reading. The next report is the report of the Committee on Appropriations. This is report number 13. The clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 490, Education, the Blueprint for Maryland's Future, revisions, favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You're welcome.
Move so much be considered the reading of the amendments.
So order.
The First Amendment is technical. The Second Amendment extends the current compensatory education enrollment calculation through fiscal 2029. It removes changes to dual enrollment, the Career and Technical Education Committee, and Workforce Development and Education Programs, and transfers those changes to House Bill 29, which is a bill related to Blueprint on post-CCR pathways. Requires the State Board of Education to suspend operation for the Expert Review Team program, specifies how those funds may be allocated, and requires a report on future implementation plans. Requires the AIB and MSDE to identify a methodology for counting low-income students for purposes of certain funding formulas, report to the General Assembly on those findings, and adds funding for that purpose. And lastly, makes technical corrections to language in the Concentration of Poverty Grant and Wraparound Services. Move the amendments.
The question before the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor will signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendments are adopted. The question now is the adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor will signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill as to its title? Hearing none, the bill is printed for third reading. Order printed for third reading. The clerk will read the next bill, please.
House Bill 628, Human Services, Universal Basic Income for Transition Age Youth Program Establishment. Favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Good morning, Madam Speaker.
Good morning.
Move so much to be considered the reading of the amendments.
So order.
There are 2 amendments. Amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment number 2 reimagines the program as the Foster Care and Transition Grant Program, a 1-year grant to help young adults transition from foster care into independent and productive adulthood, and makes the program take effect beginning fiscal 28. Move the amendments.
The question before the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendment is adopted. The question now is the adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill as to its title? Recognizing the minority leader.
Thank you, Madam
You're
Speaker.
welcome.
If the floor leader would entertain a question. So that sounded great, helping foster kids when they reach sort of the age of majority, age of maturity, to give them a chance. What is the fiscal impact of the program as amended? Like how much money is actually going to be spent into the program in future years on a yearly basis, not aggregate?
0 in FY27, and about $1 million thereafter.
Okay, so it doesn't kick in for this year's budget. It's not included in the budget that we'll ultimately vote on. But in the future, we're mandating that the governor direct $1 million to this program, which my understanding of how budgeting works is that's always subject to future legislative action. That's kind of what the BRFA does. It could add, change, subtract from the $1 million. It's not guaranteed. Is that fair?
Yes, that's fair. And this is a fantastic bipartisan and unanimous vote out of committee.
Okay, I appreciate that. It's certainly a well-intentioned goal, and I appreciate some clarity as to the financial implications. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Seeing no other questions, the bill is order printed for third reading. Will the clerk be so kind and please call the other bill?
House Bill 671, Nursing Facilities Medicaid Quality Assessment, funding of Office of the Long-Term Care Ombudsman. Favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You're welcome.
Move so much to be considered the reading of the amendments.
So order.
Amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment number 2 strikes the provision related to the Medicaid quality assessment, replacing the funding source with $2 million from the remittance of the MCO, medical loss ratio, under COMAR. Move the amendments.
The question before the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendments are adopted. The question now is the adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill as to its title? Hearing none, the bill is order printed for third reading. The clerk will read the next bill, please.
House Bill 852, Higher Education Scholarships for Correctional Officers. Favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You're welcome.
Move so much be considered the reading of the amendment.
So order.
The amendment adds certificates as an eligible program. Move the amendment.
The question before the House is the adoption of the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendment is adopted. The question now is the adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill as to its title? Hearing none, the bill is order printed for third reading. The next report is the report of the Committee on Judiciary, and that is report number 19. The clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 904, Law Enforcement, Protective Body Armor, Requirements and Reporting. Favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Good morning.
Move so much be considered the reading of the amendments.
So order.
Amendment number 1 adds sponsors. Amendment number 2 clarifies that GOCAP may not withhold law enforcement agency grants specifically for body armor and authorizes continuation of funding if an agency has purchased replacement body armor. Move the amendments.
The question before the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendment is adopted. The question now is the adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill as to its title? Hearing none, the bill is order printed for third reading. The clerk will read the next bill, please.
House Bill 1186, Peer-to-Peer Car Sharing Programs, Insurance and Liability. Favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You're welcome.
Move so much be considered the reading of the amendments.
So order.
Amendment number 1 adds a sponsor and makes technical changes. Amendment number 2 requires peer-to-peer car sharing programs to be responsible for providing certain security on a primary basis for third-party liability claims under certain circumstances. Please move the amendments.
The question before the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendments are adopted. The question now is the adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill as to its title? Hearing none, the bill is order printed for third reading. The clerk will read the next bill, please.
House Bill 1290, Child in Need of Assistance Proceedings, Child's Right to be Present. Favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You're
So
welcome.
much be considered the reading of the amendments.
So order.
Amendment number 1 just adds sponsors. Amendment number 2 is technical. Amendment number 3 strikes a substantial portion of the bill as introduced, and as a result, the bill now specifies that a child in need of assistance has the right to be present at a proceeding and that the court may exclude the child if the child's attorney requests to waive the child's presence at the proceeding. Please move the amendment.
The question before the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendments are adopted. The question now is the adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill as to its title? Hearing none, the bill is order printed for third reading. The clerk will read the next bill, please.
House Bill 1387, Maryland Automobile Insurance Fund, Fund Producer Minimum Commission Rate Repeal. Favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You're welcome.
Move so much be considered the reading of the amendments.
So order.
Amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment number 2 establishes 5% as the minimum compensation rate that the Maryland Automobile Insurance Fund is required to pay to a fund producer for private passenger automobile insurance, and prohibits the fund from paying a commission on a policy written directly by the fund without the involvement of a fund producer. Move the amendments.
The question before the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendments are adopted. The question now is the adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill as to its title? Hearing none, the bill is order printed for third reading. Report of the Committee on Ways and Means. Report number 13. The clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 29, County Boards of Education, Post-College and Career Readiness Pathways, Payment of Costs. Favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Madam Speaker,
Yes, recognizing the chair of the committee.
so much be considered the reading of the amendments.
So order.
Amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment number 2 extends the time frame during which the Accountability and Implementation Board and the State Board of Education may limit the number and types of dual enrollment courses through fiscal year 2030. I move the committee amendments.
The question before the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendments are adopted. The question now is the adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill as to its title? Hearing none, the bill is order printed for third reading. The clerk will read the next bill, please.
House Bill 195, State Lottery and Gaming Control Commission, authority to conduct studies on the use of emerging technology. Collaboration. Favor the amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You're welcome.
Move so much be considered the reading of the amendments.
So order.
Amendment number 1, authorize rather than require the State Lottery and Gaming Control to study certain gaming trends and technology. And secondly, establish a work group on gambling prevention technology within the commission. Move the amendments, please.
The question before the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendments are adopted. The question now is the adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill as to its title? Hearing none, the bill is order printed for third reading. The clerk will read the next bill, please.
House Bill 518, Gaming, Problem Gambling, and College Athlete Protections. Favor the amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Much be considered the reading of the amendments.
So order.
The amendments strike provisions that would have prohibited an individual under 21 years of age from participating in fantasy competitions. Move the amendments, please.
The question before the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendments are adopted. The question now is the adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill as to its title? Hearing none, the bill is order printed for third reading. The clerk will read the next bill, please.
House Bill 546, Primary and Secondary Education, Educator Professional Development, Course on Well-Being and Flourishing. Favor the amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So much be considered the reading of the amendment.
So order.
Amendment number 1 adds co-sponsors. Amendment number 2 specifies the State Department of Education is only required to provide a course if it can be done at no cost or a comparable cost to providing a comparable course, and sunsets the bill after 5 years. Move the committee amendments.
The question before the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendments are adopted. The question now is the adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill as to its title? Hearing none, the bill is printed for third reading. The clerk will read the next bill, please.
House Bill 586, County Boards of Library Trustees, Membership, Student Member. Favor the amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Move so much be considered the reading of the amendment.
So order.
The amendment authorizes a junior or senior enrolled in a home instruction program to be a student member of a board of library trustees. I move the amendment.
The question before the House is the adoption of the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendment is adopted. The question now is the adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill as to its title? Hearing none, the bill is order printed for third reading. The clerk will read the next bill, please.
House Bill 610, St. Mary's County, Gaming by Qualified Organization, License Required. Favor the amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much be considered the reading of the amendments.
So order.
The amendments require an organization to obtain a gaming permit to operate a gaming device in St. Mary's County rather than a license to conduct gaming, and alter the effective date of the bill to July 1st, 2026. Move the amendments.
The question before the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendments are adopted. The question now is the adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill as to its title? Hearing none, the bill is auto printed for third reading. The report of the committee, the next one is the report of the Committee on Ways and Means. It is report number 14. The clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 222, Educational Institutions Opioid Overdose Reversing Medications Policy Requirements.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So
You're
much be
welcome.
considered the reading of the amendments.
So order.
Amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment number 2 removes changes to educational programs on drug addiction and requirements from institutions of higher education and limits the expansion of the authorization to administer naloxone and other opioid overdose reversing medications to high school students who have received appropriate training. Move the amendments.
The question before the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendments are adopted. The question is the adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill as to its title? Hearing none, the bill is auto printed for third reading. The clerk will read the next bill, please.
House Bill 635, Child Care Facilities Criminal History Records Check Requirement. Favor the amendments. Amendment 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You're welcome.
So much be considered the reading of the amendments.
So order.
Amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment number 2 adds a date by which the State Department of Education must establish the centralized unit for background checks and adds a reporting requirement about the efficacy of the centralized unit, its processing of applications, and any remaining delays or barriers. Please move the amendments, Madam Speaker.
The question before the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendments are adopted. The question now is the adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill as to its title? Hearing none, the bill is auto printed for third reading. The clerk will read the next bill, please.
House Bill 1182, Public and Non-Public Schools Student Elopement Locative Devices. Favor the amendments. Amendment 1.
Thank you. Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so
You're
much be
welcome.
considered the reading of the amendment.
So order.
First Amendment is technical. Second Amendment removes behavioral intervention plans, requires that a locative device not be used for audio or video recordings of students or school personnel, and clarifies that guidance issued by the State Department of Education may not be construed as legal advice about federal privacy law. I move the amendments.
The question before the House is the adoption of the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendment is adopted. The question now is the adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill as to its title? Recognizing the gentleman from Southern Maryland.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You're
Good
welcome.
morning.
Good morning.
I do have a couple of questions for the floor leader.
Floor leader. Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Non-public and public school student elopement locative services. Can you explain the bill?
Essentially, a student may be able to, or a parent may have a locative device on an individual who might elope, who might wander off. And so the bill essentially allows for the schools to be able to engage into an agreement where the school can track that individual based on that device.
So the parents would have a locative device on the child. Do you mean like a phone?
More like a watch or specific type of device that just essentially tells where the GPS of the child is.
And the school system would use that for what?
To make sure that the child doesn't wander off. This is for children who have a history of wandering off. It might be part of their IEP program that already articulates that. And again, parents would be in agreement. Parents would be in agreement with this. The bill provides for an individual. Pick up this phone. The bill provides for the individual's parents to be engaged in agreement with the schools before this is tracked.
And so I think I also heard in the amendments or in the bill I was reading that it's not just for IEP. Didn't you get rid of that in the amendments?
No, we took it out for behavioral intervention programs.
Okay, so we're talking about a lot of children that don't have these particular programs that are required that are just wandering away. Does that sound about right?
These young people would be with an IEP, but that's different from a behavioral intervention program.
but the bill also applies to anyone who wanders off. That's my point. Is that correct?
No, just the IEPs.
Just the IEPs?
The IEPs after an agreement with the parent or guardian.
Okay, interesting. And so, okay, I think I understand, but it doesn't deal with all the folks that aren't showing up at school at all?
This is about individuals with IEPs who have a history of wandering off, and the parents are working with the schools to make sure those students don't wander off.
Got it. Thank you.
Do you want me to answer that? You got it? Okay, good. Recognizing the majority whip.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Question for the floor leader.
Yes, sir.
What is an IEP?
An individualized education program is for.
And what type of students would have an IEP?
Students with certain special needs or special circumstances.
So the bill only applies to students with special needs that have an IEP?
That is correct.
And then they would have to have a contract with the school, the parents, so the parents are leading in this conversation?
That is correct.
Thank you.
Recognizing the delegate from Hartford County.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Just
You're
to put a point on it for anyone who's still confused, because it does sound a little mysterious, I think, and the floor leader can confirm, this would be a great potential option for folks that have maybe a child that has autism, maybe they're not verbal, and they have a history of heading towards large bodies of water, things like that. This would be a protective
Can we keep it 1
mechanism.
second? Can we please listen? And if you're going to talk, please use your inside voice, very low, 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 low.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You're
So
welcome.
this could be a potentially life-saving option for a child that has a penchant for disappearing and not being able to find their way back. And this would require, right, I think, and the floor leader can correct me if I'm wrong, the parents agree to this as a protective mechanism for a child that has potentially severe disability. So I just want to make sure that that is correct and we're all on the same page.
Thank you.
Madam Speaker.
Yes, recognizing the gentleman from Baltimore County.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Would the floor leader rise just for a question?
Floor leader.
Yes, sir.
Good morning, sir. I'm just wanting to get some clarification because we're using some words that have different meanings with elopement and wandering. So does this only apply to those that are eloping, or could this apply to someone that is wandering? The delegate to my right here and I have some campuses that are pretty big in our district that they're technically not eloping. They're wandering sometimes on campus, but it could be quite a distance from the school.
Elopement means the fact of a student leaving the school campus without the permission of a staff member who is responsible for that student. Wandering means the act of the student leaving a classroom or area of a school campus as specified within the bill.
Yes, sir, and I appreciate that. I'm just trying to understand who it applies to there.
Both.
It does apply to both. So if they're wandering as well, it could apply to that?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you, sir.
All right. Seeing no other questions or amendments, the bill is auto printed for third reading. The clerk will read the next bill, please.
Also 1274, Education Posthumous Diploma Awards authorized. Favor the amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader and the delegate from Frederick.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You're welcome.
So much be considered the reading of the amendments.
So order.
Amendment number 1 makes technical alterations, changes the bill's title to Eric's Law, and makes every last member of the Ways and Means Committee a co-sponsor. Amendment number 2 creates 1 posthumous honorary diploma rather than 3 to a student enrolled in any grade, kindergarten through grade 12 at the time of the student's death. Please move the amendments, Madam Speaker.
The question before the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendments are adopted. The question now is the adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill as to its title? Hearing none, the bill is auto printed for third reading. The clerk will read the next bill, please.
Also 1279, Catalytic Revitalization Project Tax Credit Alterations. Favor the amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You're
Move so
welcome.
much be considered the reading of the amendments.
So order.
The amendments strike provisions expanding eligibility for and awards of the Catalytic Revitalization Project tax credit and add applications promoting workforce housing to the types of applications that the regulations governing the application project for the credit must emphasize. Move the amendments.
The question before the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendments are adopted. The question now is the adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill as to its title? Recognizing the delegate from Baltimore County.
Thank you. Good morning,
You're
Madam
welcome.
Speaker.
Good morning.
Can the floor leader rise to
Floor
answer
leader.
a question? Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm reading on the fiscal note, it says local highway user revenues decrease. Can you tell me why that is?
That's no longer the case. With the committee amendments, there is no fiscal note. There is no cost to the state with the amendments that we're doing.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, hearing none, the bill is auto printed for third reading. The clerk will read the next bill, please.
House Bill 1305, State Child Welfare System, reporting. Favor of the amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So
You're
much be
welcome.
considered the reading of the amendments.
So order.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You're welcome.
Amendment number 1 adds sponsors. Amendment number 2 corrects some drafting errors. Move the amendments.
The question before the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendments are adopted. The question now is the adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill as to its title? Hearing none, the bill is auto printed for third reading. The clerk will read the next bill, please.
House Bill 1310, Public High School Student Transcripts, Traumatic Loss Notation. Favor of the amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So
You're
much
welcome.
be considered the reading of the amendments.
So order.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Amendment number 1 adds co-sponsors, and amendment number 2 expands the scope of the bill to include siblings and parents who died of any cause and requires that the transcript note the year and semester in which the traumatic loss occurred. Please move the amendments.
The question before the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendments are adopted. The question is the adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill as to its title? Hearing none, the bill is auto printed for third reading. We're now going to go into special order calendar. We have special order calendar number 115, and the clerk will read the bill.
House Bill 115, Election Law, Individuals Released from State Correctional Facilities, Automatic Restoration of Voter Registration. Favor report is amended and adopted.
And I'm recognizing the maker of the motion, which is a gentleman from Baltimore County. Good morning.
Good morning, and thank you, Madam Speaker.
You're welcome.
I have an amendment at the desk. The amendment is 743324.
Amendment number 1.
Moves to be considered the reading of the amendment.
So order.
Thank you kindly.
You're welcome.
The amendment does several things. It implements proof of citizenship at the time of voter registration. It implements voter ID and mandates the provision of supplemental IDs at libraries for that purpose. It eliminates ballot drop boxes. It requires voter registration for and prohibits illegal aliens from voting in Maryland's municipal elections. It requires pre-election voter roll integrity checks and requires signature verification on absentee ballots and limits absentee participation to actual absenteeism. So we've got real holes in our election system that could handle some tightening in the way that this bill does with folks who are leaving our correctional facilities. The case of Ian Roberts isn't exclusively about the fact that we have illegal aliens voting in Maryland's elections in violation of criminal law. It's actually about the fact that the rules and laws that govern our election system are failing. We were told that folks that have signed up via the MVA there will never be cases of illegal immigrants that end up on our voter rolls in those situations and circumstances. But that has clearly proven not to be the case. And there are additional situations where we're ending up with voters who have left the state, voters who are deceased, that are frankly giant holes that are allowing folks to continue to be on our rolls. I received communications from a lady this morning, Ms. Halverson. She says, I just tried to inform the state of Maryland that I should no longer be registered to vote since I am now registered in North Carolina. The online form to update your registration info requires you to complete your that you complete your driver's license info, which I no longer have. And these circumstances create very large anomalies in our registration. For example, when you compare the registration to our population, the census population, the voting age population, you have abnormally high amounts of voters that continue to be on our rolls. And while I don't think we see massive amounts of fraud, I think it's bigger than any of us realize. So this amendment is the Secure the Vote Act. It's very well thought and it's very well written. And the purpose of the bill, or the purpose of the amendment rather, is while we're taking time to address, this bill has regular checks for folks returning from correctional facilities. I think we should do the same. I think we can afford to have a voter integrity check one time before a pending election. So I think this is important to our electoral system, and we should take the effort to make sure of the integrity of our vote, and I think this is a good opportunity to do that. So, Madam Speaker, I'd move the amendment.
Recognizing the floor leader, the gentleman from Frederick.
Thank you so much, Madam Speaker, and I
You're
thank
welcome.
the gentleman from Baltimore County for bringing the amendment forward and giving it to me in advance so we could look it over. I was nervous when I got the 14-page amendment, Madam Speaker, and I looked at it because I thought I'm never going to have enough time to read this on the floor, but I was happy to notice some key words in there that looked kind of familiar. And so this is a bill that the good delegate has mentioned. He's already brought forward to the committee. It's House Bill 964, if you want to look it up in your floor system. The bill has been actively discussed in committee and debated. We continue to have that discussion. The gentleman and I had a rather vigorous debate and a really deep philosophical disagreement about the disenfranchisement of municipal elections and the rights of municipalities to be able to run their own elections. But just for the edification of the body as to why I will urge you to resist this amendment, the amendment will do the following. It will repeal ballot drop boxes. It will repeal no excuse absentee voting, so you now have to prove that you deserve the right to receive a mail-in ballot just to get one. It will require proof of citizenship and voter ID at every single polling place. These are massive upendings of our normal, constitutionally protected voting processes, the one thing mandated by right to you simply by being born here. This is the thing that is mandated to you. It would upend our entire election system. This is not something to take lightly, and I encourage this body to reject this amendment purely because an effort like this should never, ever be considered on the floor as an amendment to a bill. And with that, Madam Speaker, I will just say I urge the body to reject the amendment. Thank you.
You're welcome. Recognizing the delegate from Hartford.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I actually know the maker of this amendment pretty well, but I did not know that this was going to be an opportunity for me to speak on today, so I'm really tickled to see it here. Just a reminder for the body, he did reference the Ian Roberts case. Ian Roberts was not only arrested, but his deportation was processed. He was here illegally. Not only was he here illegally, he was also convicted of carrying guns and having a bunch of cash in his car. He was a really upstanding contributor to our community. He's still on our voter rolls today. The last time we checked, we still can't get him removed. The man is being deported, and we still have him on our voter rolls. Can you imagine? That is so absurd. This is a very common sense thing, not just common sense. This is actually a popular policy nationwide, not just with Republicans, with independents, with Democrats, with white voters, with black voters. People want secure elections. They want to know that the folks that are voting are supposed to be voting and not watering down our votes. Our votes are watered down when people vote who should not be voting. And if we still have someone who has been repeatedly requested, by the way, to be removed from the voter rolls, who's not been removed from the voter rolls, what are we doing? What message is that sending to folks? It's saying your vote doesn't really matter. Don't come here and expect for us to respect it. We let literally anyone vote here who is not eligible to vote in the country, let alone the state of Maryland. It's not sending a strong message of confidence to folks. And if the gentle lady he referenced was unable to change states because she had to put her driver's license number in just to remove herself, but she doesn't have a driver's license anymore, what are we doing, you guys? This is getting silly. It's going to start getting really silly, and the nation has already spoken. The polling shows the country wants this, the state wants this. We should move this amendment, Madam Speaker.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you to the gentlelady for her comments on Mr. Roberts. I'd love to take the second to address this one voter after years and years of people rolling over books trying to find examples, unable to do so. Out of the 4.5 million registered voters in the state of Maryland, one of the safest and secure election systems in the country, we have found one voter who managed to register to vote, but fun fact, never voted. Not once did the man manage to vote in an election. A serial fraudster who lied on countless documents in order to get onto our voting rolls in the first place is currently in the process of getting removed. But fun fact, in the state of Maryland, you as a voter can't just be abjectly removed from the voting rolls at the whim of somebody. There's a process we have to follow, and we do that to protect every voter's right, their constitutional right to the access to the ballot. Because if we just simply remove anybody at any point without a proper process, then there is no due process. And so we are going through that process. It is currently sitting before the DOJ, awaiting sign-off to remove him from the voter rolls. But I want to make sure the body understands. Never voted, never, is waiting to be removed based on a DOJ recommendation, waiting for the Department of Justice, that's our federal government, our wonderful administration, who unfortunately defunds everything, so they probably don't have enough people to look into it. They will sign off, and we will be able to remove them, as is the proper due process in these processes. So with that, again, for the sake of safe and secure elections, which we all agree are much needed, which Maryland has, I encourage this body to reject this amendment. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Recognizing the gentleman from Southern Maryland.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You're welcome.
So I just want to address some of the comments the floor leader made because he spoke with such certainty. The truth is we don't know if he ever voted. The funny thing is that if you look at the State Board of Elections, he was mailed one ballot. But he's not on the automatic ballot registry. If you pull the PIA requests from Prince George's County, he received 3 ballots. So the records between the Board of Elections at Prince George's County versus the state, we can just say there's some discrepancies. So I have no confidence at all that you can say that he hasn't voted. The truth is, earlier, our party talks a lot about illegal immigrants voting. And the truth is, we don't know. But what we do know is we have expansive voter registration here in Maryland. Earlier this year in the Health Committee, we actually had a report dealing with the big, beautiful bill. And it turns out they said that 60,000, not illegal immigrants, non-citizens, legal non-citizens. These are people that, remember when President Biden was flying in refugees into this country, have settled in Maryland. It said 60,000 were on our Medicaid rolls. Now, to be fair, they've corrected that after 3 months, and apparently they think they missed that by a big number. Still 15,000. Who knows what the right number is? We can't estimate it. But I do know that every single person that went there to apply for Medicaid was, guess what? They were asked that they wanted to register to vote, because that's our expanded voter rolls that we have here in Maryland. So if anybody wants to take another bet that there's more Ian Roberts in this state, all we're saying is, shouldn't we reasonably look? Why is that so hard, and why does that get defended? Shouldn't we just do the due diligence, turn over the voter rolls to the congressional committee with some oversight looking at this? I think this is a completely appropriate amendment that has wide support, Democrat and Republicans, across this entire nation. Please vote green on this amendment. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Recognizing the maker of the motion.
Thank you,
of the
Madam
amendment.
Speaker. I appreciate the opportunity for a vigorous debate today. Ian Roberts is from Guyana. Guyana has proof of citizenship when registering to vote and voter ID when voting. And that's actually the standard in most first world companies, except ours. I think the floor leader makes a really good comment. It's about the process. It actually is about the process. The process should remove voters who have not voted but have been on the voter rolls for a long time. The process should remove voters who are on the voter rolls in violation of criminal law. The process should remove voters who have moved to other states. In all of these cases, the process failed completely. The process should not allow someone who is not a citizen. This is what we've been told. The thing we have been told does not happen is happening because the process is failing. We have been told that people who are here in violation of federal immigration law are not registering to vote, and they are clearly registering to vote. So while there are some parts of this bill which some folks on the floor would likely disagree with, I think there's a real problem. And I think a lot of these issues could be tightened up in a way that everybody on the floor would agree with. And as these stories unfold in the public, I think it reflects on us poorly. So while we may not like the amendment or the bill, I think this is an issue that does deserve our attention. And I think the integrity of our electoral system is really important. So that's why I'm offering the amendment today. I believe it's a good amendment, and I'd ask the body to vote green with me.
The question before the House is the adoption of the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
People are in. Has everyone recorded their vote? The clerk will take the call. There being 97 votes in the negative, the amendment fails. Are there any additional amendments to the bill as to its title? Hearing none, the bill is order printed for third reading. Special order calendar number 24, House Bill 250. The clerk will read the bill.
House Bill 250, Environment, Water Resources, and Wetlands Enforcement. Favorable report is amended and adopted.
Recognizing the maker of the motion, the delegate from the Eastern Shore.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I have an amendment at the desk, 993-025/1.
Amendment number 1.
So much be considered the reading of the amendment.
So order.
So my amendment softens the penalty provisions under the law and also makes a distinguishment between an intentional and a non-intentional violation. So the amendment goes further and stipulates that if a first violation occurs, that a warning notice that states that the person has 60 days to correct the violation does that, and if they don't, then the second or subsequent violation provisions kick in. So I'd like to ask the floor leader to rise. I do have a question or two before we ask to move the amendment.
He's right next to you, floor leader.
Hello. Thank you, Madam Speaker. So on page 2 of the bill, I just want to make, I'm sorry, page, I believe it's page 3 under the bill, number 3, it says, each day that a violation exists is a separate violation under the subsection. And I would ask you just to explain in practice what that looks like and how it mingles with or interfaces with the penalty provisions under the law. So how do we get to the cap and sort of the rationale behind what that that each day is a separate violation law?
Yeah, I think you're correct that each under the bill that each day a violation exists would be considered to be a separate violation, and I would say that's fairly standard in administrative in procedures for administrative enforcement, that each day that someone's in noncompliance is considered to be a separate enforcement, but that's how you would get to the cap on penalties.
So one of the things I'm concerned about under the bill and why the amendment's here is because if you have somebody that's received notice, they're in violation, and let's say it takes 2 weeks or 2.5 weeks to correct the violation, does the clock continue while the party is trying to correct their deficiency under the administrative finding?
Yeah, there is a provision in the bill. There are a number of criteria in the bill that are sort of mitigating factors that the department is to take into consideration, determining what is to be the penalty, if there is to be a penalty. And one of them is good faith cooperation. For example, on page 3, number 9, it says one of the factor of the degree of cooperation with the department after being notified of the violation and any good faith efforts to address the violation. So, you know, what that envisions, I believe, is if the department notifies someone that there is a violation, they acknowledge that, take action to correct it, then it's not as if there's going to be a daily penalty until it is fine, you know, whatever measures have to be done to finally correct it have been taken.
Okay. Thank you, Floor Leader. I'm going to speak on the bill or the amendment and ask for it to be moved. The primary reason why I'm bringing the amendment is the cap is $100,000, which seems like a very large sum of money, and because each day is a separate violation under the bill, you could get to $100,000 real quick. It's not that I don't believe that the department would work in good faith on the other side, because I would like to think that our bureaucracy works with folks that find themselves in these unfortunate situations. My only point is, how many days at $5,000 a day do you hit the cap? And because the bill is not speaking directly to if a party does a good thing, is that deemed to be good faith? Well, I would think that it would be deemed good faith. But as the floor leader says, there's a series of different items under this bill that speak to how and how much the department would charge in penalty. So there could be a serious violation, okay, but a good faith effort to fix it. And my concern would be that if the bill's not passed with this amendment, that a good faith effort to fix a serious problem would still result in a penalty that could get to $100,000, and that could bankrupt somebody. So for the purpose of me offering the amendment, I'm asking for softening of the penalty, primarily because of the cap, and Madam Speaker, I'd move the amendment.
Floor Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And again, I do appreciate the delegate getting us the amendment and, you know, explaining the rationale for the amendment. But I would just go back to the fact that the bill is very detailed in explaining what these mitigating factors are. You know, the department, the bill specifically says that the department may impose a penalty. There's nothing mandatory if there is a violation found. And then in terms of any penalties to be assessed, there are 9 different criteria, many of which are mitigating in favor of the potential violator in determining you know, the extent of any civil penalty that's to be imposed. So I think the bill was written to give the department maximum flexibility and discretion to review all of the facts. So for that reason, I'd urge a red vote on the amendment.
The question before the House is the adoption of the amendment. All in favor will signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? What? All right. Has everyone recorded their roll now? Their vote? Yes? Okay, the clerk will take the call. There being 97 votes in the negative, the amendment fails. Are there any additional amendments to the bill as to its title? Recognizing the gentleman from Southern Maryland.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You're
Amendment
welcome.
at the desk. Amendment number 773-227/1.
Amendment number 1.
So be considered reading of that amendment?
So order.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You're welcome.
Make a long story short, what this amendment does is put a 3-year statute of limitation on this fine. And let me tell you why I think this is really important. So earlier this year, I get a constituent phone call saying you got a letter from MDE. And he says, well, they said my boathouse is too big. I'm like, your boathouse is too big? Send me the information. So they send me the letter, and I look at it, and I call them up. I'm said, hey, looks like from satellite imaging, your boathouse is too big. He goes, but it's not. And I was like, I don't know, man. I said, let me, before I step into this, let me check it out for myself. So I drive down to his house and use the smart end of a tape measure, measure it up. And guess what? It's not too big. It's exactly what was permitted. So then I go and find all the permit information and everything, and I reach back out to MDE, and they're like, hey, well, we're going to come out and take a look at this boathouse because we think it's too big. So they come out, we all meet at the constituent's property, and they were like, well, now we believe you that you know how to read a tape measure, but we don't like the configuration of this boathouse. I was like, what are you talking about? And he said, well, it's supposed to be open with a 12-foot overhang on one side, and it's closed in on this side. And I looked, I'm like, it's a 3-sided boathouse where you drive the boat in. It's a great big area, like the size of like from the board over to the wall. I was like, what are you talking about? You can swim into it. You can go under the pier. It's completely open. And they're like, well, it's not the exact configuration that we think that was on the permit. And I flipped through the permit. I'm like, MDE signed off on this configuration of the boathouse in the size in 2002. So 23 years later, they're coming after this guy. That is a department that might have a little bit too much control, where they're hassling property owners 23 years after they approve something while we have sewage flowing down the Potomac. Focus on the real problems, which is not homeowners. So with that, Madam Speaker, I would ask that the committee please consider this and put government in check. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You're welcome.
Well, the good news with respect to the concern that the delegate has is that the bill no longer applies to tidal wetlands violations. We did amend it out. But overall, with respect to, aside from that issue, with respect to the delegate's amendment, I do want to point out that it is already law that with respect to civil penalties, there is a 3-year statute of limitations. There is a 5-year statute of limitations provision for administrative penalties. Administrative penalties relate to administrative actions or litigation, and sometimes that can take more time for investigation, for discovery, for resolution, and so that's the reason why for administrative penalties it is 5 years. The amendment would revert that to 3 years. So for that reason, I would oppose the amendment.
The question before the House is the adoption of the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker?
Has everyone recorded their vote? The clerk will take the call. There being 95 votes in the negative, the amendment fails. Are there any additional amendments to the bill as to its title? Hearing none, the bill is order printed for third reading. We have another special order, and that is Special Order Calendar number 29, House Bill 1113. And I would like the clerk to please read the bill.
House Bill 1113, Vehicle Laws, Bus Obstruction Monitoring Systems, and Bus Stop Zones. Favor report is amended and adopted.
Recognizing the maker of the amendment, which is the Minority Whip.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I have an amendment at the desk. Amendment 953221.
Amendment number 1.
Move so much be considered reading the amendment.
So order.
So this amendment just adds some other things that can't be in the bus lane. And before I officially ask to add it, can the floor leader rise for just a couple questions?
Floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You're welcome.
Okay, so I read through the bill, and there was a word in there about standing, and I just wanted to confirm with you, and I think we talked a little offline. Does the standing refer only to vehicles, or could that be interpreted as referring to like a person standing in a bus lane?
Thank you very much to the Minority Leader for getting the amendment to me and talking with me. The bill refers only to vehicles.
Okay. Okay. Thank you for that clarification. So this amendment, and let me just kind of remind everybody what we're talking about here is that we're basically putting some prohibitions on a vehicle standing, parking, being left in a bus lane, essentially. And one of the concerns that I had is that in other areas, bicycles, electric bicycles, scooters, other things could also be left there, and that's what my amendment does. And so it says, in addition to a person not being allowed to stand in a bus lane or like a mob of people, but also bicycles, scooters, and other things that we commonly find in metropolitan areas that have a lot of bus lanes. So I would move that we adopt this amendment because not everyone owns a car, right? And I think a lot of people utilize birds and pelotons and other things that literally are left all over the place. And I think if they're obstructing a bus lane, that should be part of this bill. So with that, I ask that we move this amendment. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You're welcome. Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You're welcome.
I want to thank the Minority Leader again for caring about making sure that every Marylander has the ability to move around safely and conveniently to get where they need to go. This matters not just for those who live in urban areas, but it matters to every single Marylander. They need choices and options for how to get around. However, I would ask the body to resist this amendment, and I'll tell you why. The bill addresses motorized vehicles that have license plate tags. The subject matter of the bill is enforcement of vehicles, motorized vehicles obstructing bus stop zones. That means the area where buses pull in, stop, and let passengers on and off. A motorized vehicle obstructing the bus's ability to do that is interfering with Marylanders' ability to get where they need to go. The reason that motorized vehicles are this, motorized vehicle obstruction is the subject of this bill is because those vehicles have license plate tags that can be read by automatic enforcement. So in my experience, bicycles, electric bikes, or scooters, which are named in the amendment, are not motorized vehicles with license plate tags. Therefore, they cannot be enforced. And for that, I ask the body to resist the amendment.
The question before the House is the adoption of the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? The clerk will take the call. There being 93 votes in the negative, the amendment fails. Are there any additional amendments to the bill as to its title? Recognizing the gentleman from Carroll.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I had a question for the floor leader.
Floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Welcome.
Thank you. I know we were talking about scooters and whatnot, but up in my community, and actually right in front of my house, we've got a lot of horses and horse and buggies, the Amish. I'm being dead serious. I got a lot of Amish folks up in my district, and they come right by my house. Does this bill at all address if you've got a horse and buggy?
Thank you, Delegate, for the question. The bill did not contemplate horse and buggies. It also, again, focuses on bus stop zones. So unless there's a bus stop zone in front of your house, I think the folks who use horse and buggies can rest assured, okay? And the other thing that but this is a thoughtful question. I do appreciate it. The other thing I think worth emphasizing is that the bill doesn't contemplate an extreme expansion of automated enforcement and horse and buggy enforcement or a Peloton enforcement. That would really be an extreme expansion of automated enforcement, and I think that wouldn't be the will of the body. So I hope that answers your question.
All right, thank you, appreciate it.
Recognizing the gentleman from Anne Arundel.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You're welcome.
For quick clarification before I ask the question of the floor leader, Pelotons don't move. They stay where they are. They're exercise bikes. But I do have look, this is a thoughtful question because one of the groups that always comes in and talks to me is the blind, and they say, we have a big problem in Baltimore City with people leaving scooters and bikes, and then they're tripping over them. And one of the things I do know about all of those, the scooters and the bikes, you have to put a credit card in. So, and I'm just asking maybe the committee look at this another time, that they leave those wherever they want all the time. They get in the way in the sidewalk and they get in the way in the bus lanes. So you can trace who has that scooter and who has that bike. And if we find that they are leaving them just in the middle of the street, it might be a good move for the committee to take this up and say, we can track them if you're going to use automation to go after other people that leave their cars in a bike lane. Maybe we can help both the Federation of the Blind and the bus lanes is my only suggestion. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. Thank you to the good delegate from my former committee, HGO, for your thoughtfulness and for listening to the needs of our Marylanders who have disabilities, who have the right and the need to get around. I would suggest, refer everyone back to the subject matter of the bill, which is preventing obstruction of bus zones. And I believe, I would say that if there's an interest in looking at civil or respectful, handling of scooters and the rest, we could do that. And I'd love to work with you on that, but it's not the subject matter of this bill. Thank you.
Madam Speaker.
Recognizing the gentleman from the Eastern Shore.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So for the body, for
welcome.
the third year in a row, I think I need to explain, a Peloton is a group of bikes that are going at a high rate of speed for aerodynamic speed. Thank you.
All right. The bill is auto printed for third reading. Thank you. Special order calendar number 25, House Bill 313. The clerk will read the bill, please.
House Bill 313, Landlord and Tenant, Residential Housing, Rental Applications, and Tenant Screening. Favorite report is amended and adopted.
I'm recognizing the maker of the hold, and that is the Baltimore County gentleman. How are you?
Good morning, Madam Speaker.
Good morning.
I'm very informed now what a Peloton is. Other question, does horse and buggies actually have to have tags? I'm just curious.
They do, does anyone know the answer? Floor leader?
I believe they do.
That's not the bill, though. This is a different
No,
one.
it's not the bill. I'm
I have no idea on that one. On the bill, please. On the bill, Madam Speaker. We're talking about screening reports. Let's get it.
Right. All right, let's get down. Anyway, Madam Speaker, I have an amendment at the desk.
All right, let's be serious. Here we go. What is the number?
Hold on, I've got two. I've got one that is 693924-1.
Amendment number 1.
So much, waive reading of the amendment.
So order. So much be considered the reading of the amendment.
Yes.
So order.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
This amendment would actually address some things that in this bill that I feel is very pertinent to assessing someone renting a property. I understand what the bill does, but I'm just a little concerned that there's some loophole. I mean, there's some donut holes in the bill, and what I'm trying to do is attempt to fix these loopholes or donut holes, wherever you want to call them, and to make sure that the landlords are aware of what's going on and the tenants know what's going on. This has to do with excessive damage and wear and tear. Excessive damage, not normal wear and tear. And the First Amendment would deal with not shielding the records of any damages to the property.
Floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And first, I want to thank the gentleman from Baltimore County for providing the amendment earlier, and we had a brief discussion. And I just want to inform the body that I would ask you all to reject this amendment. The amendment is unnecessary. The bill has been significantly amended in order for us to ensure that we can move this bill forward. So the landlords are okay with this bill now. IOBA is okay with this bill now. The Maryland Multifamily Association is okay with this bill now, and the realtors. So a lot of those issues that you have been addressed. So this amendment is necessary because the bill makes it clear that shielded records are those that arise from a failure to pay rent proceeding that do not have a final outcome. Accordingly, this amendment, which says the shielded records do not include records related to a security deposit, is unnecessary because you're alluding to when someone excessively damages something where a security deposit would need to be to cover those damages. That's not, it's not pertinent to this bill, so that wouldn't be necessary. So I'd ask the body to reject this amendment.
I would ask this body, I am pressing this amendment because the bill does not include records. I mean, it does include records. I'm sorry. It does not shield records that could possibly cause adverse damages to the property. And I think every landlord should know that if the property is being damaged in previous rentals, that should be open and honest. And I mean, you know, as being a landlord, I know we have it all the time where there's actually excessive damages to the property. And I want to know if someone prior has rented a property that has, you know, tore property up. And I think it's just good business.
Again, I ask the body to reject this amendment on the grounds that this bill is about failure to pay rent proceedings that do not have a final outcome. If you are not taking care of your property and you have to pay a security deposit, that's normally going to come up when you ask for references through the normal process of screening for a tenant. This is about failure to pay outcomes in which there's no final outcome from the proceeding. Therefore, that should not be held against you in the screening process. And this bill addresses those companies that do the screening. So we've already addressed this in the past, but this is about the screening companies making sure that they're not including those records in the screening reports and therefore holding up tenants who should have access to the housing because they don't have any actual final outcomes from failure to pay.
Right, I understand that. The question I have is that if a property is damaged, that could be included in a failure to pay rent. And
if there's a final outcome for that, then that would be a shielded record and therefore would be on the report.
Okay, this would just exempt if a property was damaged and failure to pay rent, that would not be able to be shielded for the simple reason because a lot of times landlords will just eat the cost and not go back to court. And that's not fair to the landlords that they can't access.
Yeah, I think I've explained the bill enough, and I think it's clear that again this amendment would not be applicable to the bill, and therefore I'd ask the body to reject the amendment. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Well, thank you.
All right, so the question before the House is the adoption of the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Are there any additional amendments to the bill as to its title?
Yes, Madam Speaker.
You want a roll
roll
call?
Yes.
No problem. Let's do a roll call.
Madam Speaker.
Okay. Has everyone recorded their vote? The clerk will take the call. There being 99 votes in the negative, the amendment fails. Are there any additional amendments to the bill as to its title? Hearing none, the bill is printed for third. Do you have another amendment?
No, I have another amendment. Yes.
All right.
All right. My glass is not working real good today.
It's okay.
Amendment 943929-1.
Amendment number 1.
Move so much reading of the amendment.
So order.
Yes, ma'am. Good morning.
Good morning.
The speaker, if the floor leader would like to rise.
Yes, sir.
To this. This amendment would deal with other actions taken for damages to property, such as civil, which you could actually have failure to pay rent plus a civil additional lawsuit, and that should not be shielded. And from what I'm reading in this bill, that could possibly be shielded because of the failure to pay rent, but yet the landlord didn't follow through with the final adjudication to the bill. To the failure to pay rent.
So again, I want to thank the gentleman for providing me with this amendment before we had a rich discussion. As I stated earlier, this bill has been significantly amended to appease landlords to make sure that the situation you just examined would not be a problem, and the amendment's unnecessary. If damages are awarded by a court, that indicates that there was a final outcome, so the record would not be shielded. Under the bill, landlords can consider records that have a final outcome that are provided by a screening company. So here, the amendment is not necessary because if that was found, if there was a final outcome, then that would not be shielded.
Okay, let me give you a scenario, and then maybe it'll make it a little bit clearer. Okay, a tenant actually fails to pay rent. They move out, and the landlord does not file failure to pay rent, go through that. But yet later, within so many days or whatever, they file a civil suit for damages because they couldn't get into the property. Would that make that shielded? And what I'm reading, it would be shielded because it had to do with failure to pay rent was the failure to pay
Was there a final outcome in the proceeding?
On a failure to pay rent, no. But after the tenant moved out,
if there's a final outcome, then if there's a final outcome, then that would not be shielded, and therefore that could be screened and could be found in the screening report.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that, please?
So if there was a final outcome, if there's a court proceeding with a final outcome, then that can be included within a screening report, and therefore can be used to assess whether or not a landlord wants to bring on that tenant. So yes, under your example, the bill already addresses that issue. Therefore, the amendment is not necessary.
All right, I just want to make it perfectly clear so I understand it. So you're saying that if a tenant fails to pay rent, it goes to court, it's never heard because the landlord says, I'm not going to follow through with it. But yet when he gets possession of the property, he goes in and there's all kind of damages done, he has a right to file a civil suit.
Correct.
Okay.
If there's a final outcome from that civil suit, then yes.
Okay. Thank you, Madam.
You're withdrawing your amendment is what I hear.
I would prefer
is that what I hear? I heard a withdrawal amendment.
I didn't hear that. Must be. We have a difference of
opinion. Does the gentleman want to withdraw his amendment?
No, ma'am, I do not.
All right. So the question before the House is the adoption of the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? The clerk will take the call. There being 100 votes in the negative, the amendment fails. Are there any additional amendments to the bill as to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Just want to give a quick welcome to the former delegate, Delegate Morheim, who's visiting us today. You must miss us. Okay, so we have Special Order Calendar number 28. We have House Bill 1105. The clerk will read the bill.
House Bill 1105, Statute of Limitations, Prosecution or Enforcement of Local Consumer Protection Codes. Favor report is amended and adopted.
Recognizing the maker of the hall, the minority leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. If the floor leader wouldn't mind rising first, I may or may not offer the amendment. I just wanted to confirm a
Floor
point
leader.
or two.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you.
Good morning. We debated this bill last year. I don't want to belabor it. I just want to make clear the criminalization or the criminal penalty for these consumer protection enforcement codes that localities, counties, or municipalities primarily enforce, that's been removed. Is that correct?
Well, this bill will not apply to that. So the statute of limitations in this bill will only apply to civil actions brought by localities. They may have criminal actions, but they would not be affected by
But
this.
whatever criminalization of these consumer protection codes would exist under law that already controls it today, and the statute of limitations generally for many criminal matters is 1 year. Some there are variations to it depending on when you discover the crime. But this doesn't affect that anymore, correct?
That is correct. We amended in the committee to only apply to civil actions.
Okay. I had an amendment, and it was, I believe, identical to an amendment we discussed last year, and I know the Senate did not move the bill last year, and I won't try to read their minds, but I think some of it was based upon these concerns about the notice to the locality and whether someone was sort of getting, my friend from St. Mary's County talked earlier about a similar situation of someone that had an existing situation at their home or in their business that should have been known about for many, many years, and then all of a sudden the government pulls up and says, hey, we're gonna fine you, we're gonna penalize you for it. I'm not gonna offer the amendment, I'm gonna withdraw the amendment. I know in speaking with my friend from Baltimore City, that the amendment would not be accepted. We've gone through the debate before, and I know we have a lot of other things to do today, but I did want to get that on the record as to why there's opposition to the bill and what the issues remain. So I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. Are there any additional amendments to the bill as to its title? Hearing none, the bill is auto-printed for third reading. Thank you so much for working it out. So we have another special order calendar, and that is House Bill 993.
Madam Speaker.
House Bill 993, real property short-term rentals, favorable report adopted.
Recognizing the maker of the hold from the Eastern Shore.
Thank you, Madam
You're
Speaker.
welcome.
I have an amendment at the desk. Amendment number 823227/1.
Oh, we don't have it. Do you have any extra copies?
Plenty.
He's bringing it. Thank you so much, sir. Appreciate you.
Amendment number 1.
Thank you. Move so much be considered the reading of the amendment.
So order. And what is the number?
I'm sorry. It's 823227/1.
Amendment number 1.
So much be considered the reading of
So
the amendment.
order.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So this is really to help clarify an issue. So the amendment basically says nothing in the bill would prohibit a county or municipality government from requiring an operator to register a short-term rental. So the reason that this is needed is that not all short-term rentals go through accommodation intermediaries like VRBO and Airbnb. And I have some jurisdictions like Talbot County, I think the same as in Ocean City, where the municipality or the county requires a registration of the short-term rental. And they do that for a very important purpose, 2 important purposes. One is to make sure they can collect the hotel accommodations tax, which sometimes can be missed if it's not registered. And again, also for a fire safety issue as well. So I move my amendment.
Maker, the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I want to thank the good gentleman from the Eastern Shore for providing the amendment earlier and us having a discussion. And, you know, this amendment is very reasonable and everything. So we're going to actually accept this as a friendly amendment.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. It's 1 second, please. I'm trying to decide. I noticed that there is a typo on the amendment. It says rental. Should it say rental? It says short-term rental.
Madam Speaker, I noticed that as well, that it says renal at the end, and that
Yes.
is a typo.
So I just want to make sure that it's okay. And if you wonder if I read it or not, I read it.
I read it as well, so that should be corrected.
We're gonna
We'll accept the
the
amendment
bill and
with the
fix
typo
it.
corrections. Yes.
Can someone ask for a special order and then we'll fix it?
Madam Speaker, maybe special order this amendment so that we
The
can
committee?
Yeah, special to the end of the calendar.
to fix it.
End of the calendar, fix it. Yep.
Yes.
Thank you, Madam
Thank you so much. Appreciate you. So the question before the House is to special order House Bill 993. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The House Bill 993 has been special order until the appropriate time today. Okay, thank you. All right, 1 second, please. We're doing well. We have another special order. We were busy yesterday. And it's actually House Bill 1081. I'd like to recognize, actually, would the clerk please read the bill?
House Bill 1081, Maryland Transit Administration Reform Act. Favorable report is amended and adopted.
I'd like to recognize the maker of the motion, the gentleman from Baltimore County.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I have an amendment at the desk. That is Amendment 523627-1.
Amendment number 1.
So much be considered the reading of the amendment.
So order.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So
You're welcome.
I have an amendment here that it's about one simple principle, that is protecting the property rights of Marylanders. In this bill, it would give the Maryland Transit Administration the power to take someone's home, business, or land immediately based only on the government's estimate of its values. And that's before that person has had their full day in court. This is not about fairness. This is not about real due process. This is about government overreach. And yes, this bill says that the owner can fight later, but we have to be honest with ourselves. Once the government has taken your property and started construction, the leverage is gone here. So the burden shifts entirely onto the individual to fight the state. We should not be expanding that kind of power. This amendment simply says slow down, follow the normal process, respect property rights, and ensure just compensation is truly just before the taking of your private property occurs. And I want to make this next point and hope that everyone understands here that today in this bill it deals with transit. Tomorrow you could see more of the erosion of your property rights. And we've seen situations obviously throughout the state recently that do not necessarily deal with this bill and how it works with the taking process, but it deals with private property rights like the MPRP project that many of us have discussed. We saw just in the news last week the Baltimore Peninsula project in the city and how that affects private property rights. So this is a serious issue. We should not be expanding these powers to the state government. Under current law, the state generally must go through the full condemnation process before taking possession. Let's keep it that way. Madam Speaker, I'd like to move the amendment. Thank you.
Floor Leader, the Chair of the Committee.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I
You're
thank
welcome.
the delegate for not only providing the amendment, but giving an early notice about what the topic was. It's obviously an important topic. Property rights are extremely important. They're important to the rule of law in our country, so I appreciate that. This bill is the product of a work group that met in public setting over the interim and did a lot of work. The bill obviously does a lot of other things besides this, but this was one of the elements that the work group felt was important. And the great news is it's not really up to us whether or not this change occurs. It's up to the people because this is a constitutional amendment. So not every question is ripe for popular assembly, but this one, because we're amending an existing provision of the state constitution, has to go before the voters. So if this bill passes by the requisite, I think it's 3/5 majority in this chamber and the other chamber, it will go on to the voters and they can decide whether or not the delegate from Baltimore County is right or the legislation is right. And so for that reason, I say let the people decide, and I'd ask the body to resist the amendment.
Recognizing the maker of the amendment.
Madam Speaker, thank you, Mr. Chair. So I'm still going to press this amendment for a number of reasons. And yeah, obviously I love the people of Maryland. I trust them to make sound decisions, but I do not trust, unfortunately, the process and the politics that often go involved in how some of these ballots are written. In many ways, no offense to some people in here, I don't trust how the lawyers sometimes write some of these ballot questions for political gain. And it's not just me. I mean, the question here is whether we're presenting clearly on the ballot in Maryland. We have seen examples in our history where there has actually been the ballot rewritten several times before it's made its way to the ballot, challenged in court, interpreted completely different at the time the voters actually went to make their decision. It's not a criticism of voters, it's just the reality of how these questions were written. And even in one of our most high-profile ballot questions in Maryland, one of the most in Maryland's history in 1992 is the perfect example, how it was rewritten several times. There were lawsuits filed. Actually, just as recent as 2024, where I represent in Baltimore County, there was a Baltimore County Council ballot question where it was bundled and expanding the council from 7 members to 9 members, but in there also tied in full-time compensation for the council members. What very few people realized when they were voting at the time is how that could potentially be making a salary of $70,000 to $140,000 because of the confusion on that very referendum. And I think, let's just put this in simple terms, ladies and gentlemen. If you were to, in my area where I represent, go up the York Road corridor, say Lutherville, Timonium, up to Hunt Valley and Sparks, they actually proposed one of the worst ideas that I've seen in my time in politics, to put a light rail up the middle of York Road. If you were to go ask door to door the people of the areas of Lutherville, Timonium, and Hunt Valley and Sparks if they wanted to see the light rail, or I'm sorry, their property rights basically diminished completely in the process, and you ask them if they agree or disagree, we all know the answer to that. But if you put a very confusing ballot question on the ballot whenever this takes place, it could easily change how somebody would cast their ballot on that referendum, which again is why I pushed the amendment. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Recognizing the chair of the committee.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You're welcome.
The delegate boiled this down really well. If you're for more transit, like rail service to Western Maryland, which we voted for on this floor, an extension of the commuter rail up into Delaware, as we voted on this floor, things like the Purple Line, as I'm living in my district, or other parts of our state that have transit plans, this is a good bill and you should vote for it, and you should vote against the amendment. If you're against those things, as I understand the gentleman is, then you should vote for his amendment. Very simple. Thank you for making it so clear, delegate. If you're for transit, vote against the amendment. If you're against transit, vote with the delegate from Baltimore County. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The question before the House is the adoption of the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The noes have it. The clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, to explain my vote.
Explain my
Yes.
vote.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So, I'm not against transit. I'm not really against a lot of things. I'm against some things in the world. But I don't have a black and white absolutist view of everything. I think experience and the rough and tumble of life over the years I've been fortunate enough to live it have taught me that there's not always a complete right or wrong answer to any question, unless it's math, in which case I refer to my friend from Baltimore County for the right or wrong answer. But what I would say is that transit has to be in the appropriate time, at the appropriate place, at the appropriate cost. It has to do the most benefit for the most people, as opposed to for a narrow group of people who may want it in certain areas, in certain times, and at certain costs that do not make sense for the overall body politic and citizenry of this state or any state. Transit in and of itself is not the goal. Increased economic development, increased mobility, increased opportunity is the goal of transit. Simply having a bus doesn't change anything unless there's some place for the bus to go that makes sense for the people who live there in an economically efficient way. So I'm voting against the amendment because I believe that the bill goes too far in the respect of allowing you to take property from private citizens to expand transit that those communities may in fact not think is appropriate for their area. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Recognizing the gentleman from Baltimore County.
Thank you, Madam
You're
Speaker. I'll just
welcome.
be very brief. And to the minority leader, yeah, I mean, the bill, if you want to support transit, you will vote for the bill. But the amendment, again, as the minority leader just said, the emphasis on the amendment was about protecting private property rights, especially at a time that we've seen a recent assault on private property rights. So that's why I put forth the amendment. That's why I put up my green vote. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You're welcome.
Speaker.
Recognizing the gentleman, the minority whip.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Explain my vote. I'm not voting green because I'm against transit. I'm voting green because I'm against expanding eminent domain in Maryland. And that's what this amendment was put in for, was to put some guardrails around the government taking property once again. So for those reasons, happy to have a green vote. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Recognizing the vice chair of the committee.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You're
Thank you.
welcome.
I just wanted to rise to explain my vote on this amendment. I appreciate my colleague from a very similar shared district and his concerns about this bill and his introduction of this amendment. However, I do want to correct some of what that he did present publicly to this committee. I agree with him that all of our ballot initiatives need to be in plain language, and we have had bills on that. I actually sponsored one myself a few years ago, and I think that's something we should always pursue, that everyone understand what's on a ballot question. That was part of his argument. I think that's a little bit off this bill and off of his amendment. However, I also would say that the issues that he mentioned with Piedmont reliability, but specifically with a proposal to put the light rail down York Road, never came to fruition, nor was it an actual realistic proposal. And I think some of those comments are just scaring the public and making them concerned about things that were not in reality ever a true concern. So I wanted to correct the record on that, and we do hope that we can support property rights with transmission lines. However, that is not within the scope of this bill at all. Thank you so much, Madam
The
Speaker.
clerk will take the call. There being 98 votes in the negative, the amendment fails. Are there any additional amendments to the bill as to its title?
Yes.
Recognizing the minority leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I just had a question for the floor leader about another component of the bill, completely different.
Recognizing the chair of the committee.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
It's
You're welcome.
my understanding that a component, it's a significant bill. It has a lot of different moving parts, but one of the components of the bill is that for the first time in Maryland history, it would include the Maryland Transit Administration within the liability limit caps of the State Tort Claims Act. Is that fair to say?
Yes, that's in the bill.
Okay. And the Maryland Transit Administration, to my knowledge at least, typically they have a variety of modalities of transportation or transit that they control, but a lot of what they do, I think a lot is a fair, soft way of saying it. A lot of what they do is buses in the Baltimore City and Baltimore metropolitan region. Is that part of their ambit?
Yeah, they have the core service in Baltimore, which is bus, light rail, and subway. They have the commuter rail, statewide commuter rail system, the 3 MARC rail lines. They have the commuter bus system, and then sometime, hopefully before I retire, they have
Never.
the purple line.
Never. Okay, hopefully before you retire, the purple line. So applying the State Tort Claims Act for people who, many of us were lawmakers, but we certainly don't know every element of the law. That's a $400,000 cap on people's personal injuries. It includes wrongful death. Is that correct?
Yes, it is a cap that applies to every other agency of state government that would now apply to the Maryland Transit Administration, just like it does the State Highway Administration, the Motor Vehicle Administration, I believe the Maryland Transportation Authority, the Maryland Aviation Administration, the Maryland Port Commission.
And all of those transit agencies are significant, but I always thought that the historical difference of why it wasn't applied to the Transit Administration is because they operate a bus system, and buses get into accidents. And buses are essentially common carriers. So the Aviation Administration operates the airport, but they don't fly the planes. They don't necessarily maintain the planes, fly the planes for the private carriers. And thankfully, while there are train accidents, oftentimes they are by private entities as well. Certainly the MTA's light rail could go off the rails, so to speak, cause injuries and damages. It doesn't happen very often, but there are lots of bus accidents historically in Maryland, and that's why the limitation on liability wasn't applied. Because, for example, if I was riding a private bus service, Greyhound, and Greyhound was transporting me from my home in Cumberland to Annapolis to serve here, and on the way the Greyhound driver was completely negligent, was speeding, and swerved, tipped the bus over, and I was severely injured, that situation would not have the $400,000 liability cap, right?
Assuming, Greyhound is not Maryland state government, so
right.
correct.
So that case, that injured individual, they would have a much better chance to recover, they or their families, for their injuries. But if the exact same thing happened, say in the city of Baltimore, with a driver who was speeding, being negligent, maybe they ran a red light and ran you over and you were paralyzed, you would be limited to $400,000 because you would say, well, that's state government and you can't get more than $400,000. That's how the cap would work.
Yeah, and you're, of course, more well-versed in this than I am, given your decades of experience ahead of mine in the legal realm. But I would just say there are a couple of exceptions, but generally, you're right.
It's hurtful.
Generally, you're right. We have treated government differently for purposes of liability than private actors. That's true across a range of things, right? If a government permitting official comes on your property and does something bad, that's treated differently than if a private citizen comes on your property and does something bad. So you're right. It is different. We treat government a little bit differently in this regard.
And all I can say is, from what I've seen in my life's experience, is what happens with individuals. Caps make sense to a certain extent. $400,000 in today's world with medical costs and medical expenses, it's a very, very low number, very low number. And so what happens with individuals, what I've seen, that perhaps they do get paralyzed. Perhaps they do suffer life-altering injuries. They can't go back to work. They have hundreds of thousands of dollars in medical expenses, and they're told, hey, you get $400,000 and that's it. The evil attorneys, always take their cut. There's always expenses that are involved, and so you actually wind up with far less than $400,000 in your pocket. And does this create a situation with some of these people? In what I've seen, what they do is they turn to our assistance programs. They're 35, 45, 55 years old. They really can't go back to work. They've been seriously injured, and rather than be compensated through typically insurance, I'll just ask you that, does MTA now, do they maintain outside insurance, or are they self-insured?
I believe they have outside insurance, if I'm remembering correctly. Yeah.
I thought that was the case. So they pay for insurance premiums with an outside insurer that's not the state. So I want to make clear to everybody, it's not your state taxpayer dollars that are paying for MTA bus-related accident settlements or things of that nature. They're paying for the insurance premiums, but it's not a budget item like we're dealing with the sexual abuse lawsuits where there is no insurance coverage, and we may be confronted with having to come up with general fund taxpayer dollars to take care of that. But I appreciate the candor and the direction as to what the bill does and how that affects people with respect to MTA. One last question. My understanding is that multiple times over the last 5, 6, 7 years, members of the General Assembly have put in legislation to get MTA into the State Tort Claims Act, and that legislation has never advanced, say, from like the Judiciary Committee or other places it was assigned. Was that something that the work group was aware of, or the bill was sort of discussed as it went through the process? Hey, we thought about this before and decided not to do it?
Sure. So a few things. One, I agree that the caps are too low. I hope you'll join me next year, if it doesn't get through this year, in co-sponsoring the delegate from Montgomery and Howard County's bill to increase those caps. I think that's a really good idea.
I might have done that once. I'm not
I
sure.
also just want to add that while you may know the history of why it was done this way when the Maryland Tort Claims Act was passed in 1981, I was born that year, so I was not around for the debate. But in addition to what you said, I think one of the factors was that the MTA, right, was not that far removed from being a private company at that time, right? As you know, the MTA was originally the Baltimore, I think, Transit Company. And so it was converting from a private entity into a public entity. So I think that was part of the reason of that history. But yes, I can't speak for all the work group members. I was certainly aware of that legislation that you cited. I knew about it at least 1 year. You could be right that it was multiple years. I'm not sure.
Thank you. I appreciate the information.
Hearing no other questions or seeing any amendments, the bill is order printed for third reading. Special Order Calendar, House Bill 993. The clerk will read the bill.
House Bill 993, real property, short-term rentals. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the maker of the motion, the gentleman from the Eastern Shore.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I withdraw Amendment 823227/1.
Hearing no objection, the amendment is withdrawn. Recognizing the floor leader.
Madam Speaker, I have an amendment at the desk.
Okay. What is the amendment number?
Amendment number 653721/1.
Amendment number 1.
The amendment does what that gentleman wanted to do over there.
Move so much we consider.
But we made the correction that it's rental, not renal. So move the amendments.
Yeah, all right. So order.
Technical.
All right. It's a technical amendment. There you go.
Madam Speaker.
Yes.
Thank you, Matt. Would the floor leader yield for a question, please?
Yes.
Mr.
Yes, yes.
Mr. Floor leader,
Yes.
could you spell rental for us, please?
Spell rental. RENTAL.
Thank you, sir. Thank you,
All
Madam
right.
Speaker.
So the question before the House is the adoption of the amendment. All in favor will signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendment is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill as to its title? Hearing none, the bill is printed now for real for third reading. Thank you for working it out. No roll call. Introduction of bond initiatives after the 55th day. So I'm recognizing the sponsor, which is the gentleman from Baltimore County. Can you tell us why is it late?
Yes, ma'am, I sure can.
All right.
This truly was the senator's fault. However, I will explain. Back several weeks ago when we had the freeze, a building in my community, Water's Edge, Eastern Baltimore County, the roof collapsed and destroyed everything inside the building. And
so sorry to
we
hear.
want to take care of this. The county executive asked if I would put this in as well. So I'm following orders.
Sounds good. Shall the bond initiative be introduced? It requires 95 votes. The clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone in the back? Nope. If so, the clerk would take the call. There being 3 votes in the, 1 second. Yeah. There being 120 votes in the affirmative and 3 votes in the negative, the bond initiative will be introduced. The clerk will read the bond initiative and the committee assignment.
Introductory House Bond Initiatives number 69, March 18, 2026, referred to appropriations.
Okay, that ends the work at the desk. Great work, everyone. You're doing really well. Committee announcements, appropriations.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The Appropriations Committee will meet for bill hearings at 12:45.
All right, 12:45, Economic Matters.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Economic Matters will have a voting session at 1 o'clock.
Environment and Transportation.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The House Environment and Transportation Committee will have bill hearings at 1 o'clock, followed by a voting session.
Government, Labor, and Elections.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. GLEE will meet for vote session after subcommittees. Listen up for subcommittee announcements.
Health.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The Health Committee chairs will meet at 1:30 briefly, followed by bill hearings. Please listen for subcommittee announcements.
Judiciary.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You're welcome.
The Judiciary Leadership will be meeting at 1 o'clock in room 350, and then following we'll have a vote session.
Ways and Means.
Thank you, Madam
You're
Speaker.
welcome.
The Ways and Means Committee will meet for bill hearings at 1 o'clock. We will vote later today. Please listen up for the
Subcommittee announcements, recognizing the lady from Howard.
I was really speedy on standing up there.
Yes, I saw that.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You're welcome.
The Health Facilities Subcommittee of the Health Committee will meet 45 minutes after we wrap up session on Zoom. Thank you.
Recognizing the delegate from Howard, then Montgomery.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The
welcome.
Agriculture and Aquaculture Subcommittee will meet after hearings and voting. Thank you.
Recognizing the lady from Montgomery.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The Health and Social Services Subcommittee on Appropriations will be meeting at 3 p.m. in the joint hearing room for a voting session. Thank you.
Recognizing the chair of the Economic Matters Committee.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I have an update. So Economic Matters voting session will take place at 3 o'clock.
All right.
Listen out for subcommittee assignments.
Recognizing the Vice Chair of Government, Labor, and Elections.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The Government Operations and Ethics Subcommittee will meet today at 2:30.
Recognizing the Chair of Judiciary.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I have an update. Voting will begin at 2 o'clock. Thank you.
You're getting your exercises today, okay? Recognizing the delegate from Baltimore City. The one in front of me, right here.
Thank you, Madam
Next
Speaker.
to the lady with the beautiful yellow coat.
Housing and Real Property Subcommittee will meet this afternoon after Business Reg and Unemployment.
The gentleman from Baltimore City in the back.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The Capital Budget Subcommittee will meet for a voting session at either 2 o'clock or right after appropriations appropriations bill hearings are over in the appropriations room.
The delegate from Prince George's.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The Government, Labor, and Elections Local Government Subcommittee will meet right after voting to consider one bill. Right after committee for one bill, please be prompt.
The delegate from Baltimore City, then Prince George's, and then Anne Arundel.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The Transportation and Environment Subcommittee of Appropriations will meet after appropriations bill hearings today.
Prince George's.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You're
The
welcome.
Workers Subcommittee will be meeting, Workers Compensation Subcommittee will be meeting immediately after floor, and this will be an in-person meeting.
The gentleman from Anne Arundel. Thank you for being patient.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The
You're
Business
welcome.
Regulations Subcommittee will be meeting today at 2 p.m.
Recognizing the lady from Montgomery, then Baltimore City.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The Non-Energy Utilities Subcommittee of the Environment and Transportation Committee will be meeting at 2:45 or 10 minutes after the Agriculture Committee ends. Thank you.
Recognizing the lady from Baltimore City.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The Education and Economic Development Subcommittee of Appropriations will be meeting for voting at 3 p.m. in the Appropriations hearing room.
And the gentleman from Baltimore County, the lady from Baltimore County, I need to look to my left. Sorry.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The Maternal, Infant, and Child Health Subcommittee of the Health Committee will be meeting immediately after floor on Zoom. Thank
The
you.
gentleman from Baltimore County.
Thank you. Nice to know I'm not the only problem child over here, Madam Speaker. The K-12 Education Subcommittee of Ways and Means will meet hopefully at 2:30, but we'll work our way around voting in other subcommittees. Keep your phones
Baltimore
open.
County.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The Environment Subcommittee will meet virtually today after the other Environment and Transportation subcommittees have met. Thank you.
Baltimore County.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The Civil Law Subcommittee will meet at 12:30 on one bill.
Baltimore County.
Good afternoon, Madam Speaker. The criminal law, please listen carefully. Criminal law will meet at some point in time this afternoon, so please pay attention. Thank you.
Baltimore County.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Land Use and Zoning Subcommittee will be meeting after our committee votes in person.
Baltimore County.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The Labor Subcommittee will be meeting. We don't have the exact time yet. Please check your email.
Montgomery, then Southern Maryland.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The Public Safety and Administration Subcommittee of Appropriations will meet in room 150 at 3 p.m. for voting.
The very, very, very patient lady from Southern Maryland.
Thank you, Madam
You're
Speaker.
welcome.
The Gaming Subcommittee will meet at 4 virtually.
Montgomery County.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The
You're welcome.
Revenue Subcommittee of the Ways and Means Committee will meet immediately after bill hearings. I expect that maybe it'll be around 1:30. If it ends up conflicting with K-12 members, watch your emails. Thank you.
Prince George's.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The Local Revenue Subcommittee of Ways and Means will meet virtually at 12:30 p.m.
The Chair of the Health Committee.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I just forgot to announce that we will have a voting session following hearings today.
Any other subcommittee announcements?
Update, Madam Speaker. Criminal law will meet at 12:30 virtually. Thank you.
Okay. Any other subcommittee announcements or chair announcements, vice chair announcements? All right? Okay. So now we are going to go on to delegation announcements, recognizing the Minority Whip.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The Frederick County delegation will meet immediately after the second session today. Surprise. For a quick vote. Thank you.
Any delegation, other delegations? All right. Seeing none, caucus announcements. Oh, yes, go ahead.
Yeah, no caucus, right? You're like,
Baltimore
why is he standing up for a caucus? There's a brand new caucus.
Yeah.
It's got a name similar to that of a Chappell Roan song, but it's much more appropriate. It's called the Pink Wednesday Club, okay? And you're a member by default today, those of us who are wearing pink on Wednesdays. Thank you for joining us today.
Oh, you're welcome.
So that caucus meets just by walking around in pink clothes on Wednesdays.
Okay. All right. So, since there are no caucus announcement, we are going to do a Women's History Moment. And that's going to be presented by the wonderful lady from Montgomery County. Good afternoon.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You're welcome.
Good afternoon. Not often do you get a chance to meet or be mentored by your shero, but for me, that was the case. So many of you may not know her name, but if you've ever seen a picture of Dr. Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream speech, there's a woman on that stage wearing a hat. Her name is Dorothy Irene Height. She was born in Virginia in 1912 and was a pivotal civil rights leader, social worker, and educator who championed the rights of both women and African Americans for over 70 years. She is the epitome of a servant leader. She puts others first, listens to understand without judgment, and showed genuine care and compassion. She started her career in 1937 at the YWCA, where she fought against racial injustices. During her tenure, the YWCA adopted the Interracial Charter in 1946, and with the momentum of the Civil Rights Movement, the YWCA allocated funds to launch a countrywide action program for integrating and desegregating those facilities. She also served as the national president of Delta Sigma Theta sorority, where she transformed that sorority into a powerhouse for social action and civil rights. In 1957, Dr. Height led the National Council of Negro Women for 4 decades. She promoted its mission to empower Black women and to combat poverty and inequality in their communities. Although Dorothy Height was the only woman among the Big Six male civil rights leaders involved in the planning and organizing of events. Notably, for the 1963 March on Washington event, she didn't have a speaking role. As common for women then and now, she was an essential, effective, and influential voice in the back room, having to use her skills of soft power. During the Civil Rights Movement, she co-organized Women's Wednesdays in Mississippi with Polly Spiegel Cohen, which brought together Black and white women from the North and South to fight segregation and to support racial justice efforts. Those from the Washington, D.C. area may be familiar with the annual Black Family Reunion event, where she organized and celebrated the traditional African American culture. Dorothy Irene Height was awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom in 1994, the Congressional Gold Medal in 2004 for her civil rights activism, and she was immortalized on the U.S. postage stamp in 2017. Dr. Height passed away in 2010 at the age of 98. I have always been inspired by her quote, "I want to be remembered as someone who used herself and anything she could touch to work for justice and freedom. I want to be remembered as one who tried." Please remember Dr. Dorothy Irene Height.
Thank you. Beautiful moment. Any personal or guest announcements recognizing the chair of the Government, Labor, and Elections Committee?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. GLEE will meet for voting at 3 p.m.
Voting at 3 p.m. for GLEE, recognizing the majority whip.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Colleagues, I know all of you are anticipating the results of last night's game. I'm happy to say that my Howard University men's basketball team was triumphant, but that's a win. Those 3 points got them the win. It was 86-83. May all the other Howard alum join me in standing as we celebrate. The reason is because this is the university's first win, but also it's our unofficial 5th HBCU. 20% of Howard students come from the state of Maryland, and here in Maryland, we have the most alum of any other legislature in the country. So Howard University is the state of Maryland, so thank you.
Recognizing the gentleman from the Eastern Shore.
Yes, Madam Speaker. I would like to take a moment to introduce Mr. Randy Laird and his class of students. Mr. Laird is a social studies teacher and the senior class advisor at Chrisfield High School. Each year he brings his students to Annapolis for a visit to see how their government works. Thank you.
Welcome.
Are you in the gallery?
Recognizing the delegate from Baltimore County in the front, and then I'll go to the back.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'm just circling back to say the Labor Subcommittee of Government, Labor, and Elections will meet at 12:45. Thank you.
Recognizing the delegate from Baltimore County.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Joining us today is one of the coaches from Dundalk High School. Benjamin Wade is up there somewhere.
Welcome.
Welcome. Thank you.
You're welcome. Recognizing the delegate from Anne Arundel, then I'm going to come back to Prince George's.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. In light of what I watched on the floor in a very bipartisan way a few minutes ago, where we fixed the bill just by adding a T, I'd like to congratulate the body for your first attendance ever in a political tea party.
Okay, recognizing the delegate from Prince George's.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You're welcome.
It has come to the Vice Chair of Protocol's attention that we have a new group that has been practicing off campus and will be debuting their new band that has formed at the Sine Die party. And we really, really would appreciate if you could pay your protocol dues for the Sine Die party, because this will also be a moment to be able to offer our new band. And I permission to use the delegates' names.
Permission granted.
So the new group is made up of delegates Denny Tavares, who will be on vocals, Delegate Wyville, who will be on tambourine, and Delegate Ben Barnes, who will be on tuba. And the new band is named Third Reading. So please, please, please pay your protocol dues. We will be so excited for this new debut. Thank you.
Madam Speaker.
Recognizing the delegate from Prince George's.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. If the chair of the Appropriations Committee is going to be taking part, I'm going to pay my dues right now, actually.
Thank you.
There you go.
I'm going to say, if I may, listen, after that performance, you have to pay it. Come on now. That was beautiful. You must pay it. Okay, please. So every day I'm going to announce, I believe we have 41 people that have not paid. So today is 41. I'm going to announce tomorrow. That number has to come down. Okay? 41 today. And he just paid, so 40. Recognizing the gentleman from the Eastern Shore. You going to pay too?
Madam Speaker, I've already paid, but my question
Beautiful.
is, can I pay treble dues so I can listen to the tuba playing?
Okay. Recognizing the gentleman from the Eastern Shore. Oh, he's paying. 39. All right, let's recognize the gentleman from Anne Arundel.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
I'm sorry, Southern Maryland, are you going to pay?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Friends, I know many of you think of him as maybe like Bigfoot or the Loch Ness Monster, but he does exist. I want to announce my shadow for the day. The good delegate from St. Mary's County that's here, I'll be showing him around and remembering where everything is. So thank you so much.
So the gentleman from Southern Maryland, after announcing that shadow, must pay for the shadow too. There you go. All right, recognizing the gentleman from Cecil.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Just to the Cecil delegation, we will be meeting at 9 a.m. tomorrow on Zoom. Thanks so much.
Anyone else for any personal, recognizing the chair of the Ways and Means Committee?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Just an update that the Ways and Means Committee will vote at 4:30 p.m. So to recap, that's 1 p.m. brief bill hearings, subcommittees will meet, and we will vote at 4:30 p.m. today. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Wonderful. Recognizing the delegate from Eastern Shore.
Madam Speaker, I'll pay my dues on one condition, that he doesn't play the tuba.
Okay. What does the chair from Appropriations say?
You find me a tuba, I'm playing it.
Any other personal or guest announcement? All right, seeing none, let's go to quorum call, please. And please continue to pay today, please, because I'm going to announce tomorrow how many are due. Okay. Has everyone recorded their presence? The clerk will take the call. There being 136 members present, the House is still in session. Recognizing the majority leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You're welcome.
I move that the House stands adjourned until Wednesday, March 18th at 5:30 p.m. Legislative date, March 5th.
Thank you so much. Try to have a little fun while you're working, okay? Thanks so much.